Hello, anatomy students. Today we're going to talk about the male reproductive system and spermatogenesis. So let's talk first about the general functions of the reproductive system. It's in charge of survival of the species. So the reproductive system produces gametes, which are the sex cells, the oocytes in females and the sperm that are in males. And the organs of our reproductive systems are charged with producing, storing, nourishing, and transporting those gametes so that they meet each other up during fertilization. And so let's take a look at some of the things that the male system and the female system have in common. First of all, they both have gonads. We have testes in the male and ovaries in the female. Both of them have a duct system. In the male, this arrow is pointing to the vas deferens, which is now called the ductus deferens. And in the female, we're looking at the oviduct. The older term for that was the fallopian tube. We also have accessory glands and organs, and these are going to function to secrete fluids into the ducts. Both systems have external genitalia, and they are both open to the outside environment. So the opening of the urethra in the penis is where you get that opening in the males, and the opening of the vagina is how it connects to the outside environment in females. Once male and female gametes unite, we get a new generation. So ovaries and testes are the gonads in each gender, and ovaries produce estrogens, testes produce androgens, which are hormones that are going to stimulate and support the growth and development of sperm and oocytes. And then during sexual intercourse, when these two unite and fertilization occurs, then you get an embryo. So let's talk about the structures of the male reproductive system. We'll talk first about the scrotum and the testes. The testes are housed in sacs that are found outside of the body. These sacs are called the scrotum, and the testes are attached to the internal structures of the male reproductive system through this cord right here, which is called the spermatic cord. The spermatic cord and the testes are going to descend through the abdominal musculature before a male fetus is born. And it descends through a hole in the muscular wall called the inguinal canal. And that hole is going to close up, but it's always a weak point in the male body. Maybe you've heard of people who have had an inguinal hernia. Like sometimes if somebody is lifting up a box that's pretty heavy, and sometimes the intra-abdominal pressure can rise so much that it kind of causes the part of the small intestine to kind of push through that opening, and then that has to be repaired. The spermatic cords then are the link between the external and the internal portions of the male reproductive system. The spermatic cord contains a number of different structures, the vas deferens / ductus deferens, blood vessels, nerves, and they're surrounded by layers of connective tissue, fascia, and also muscle, and of course skin. We've also got some lymphatic vessels in there. So the scrotum itself consists of 3 different layers. So on the very outside, we have epidermis or skin. Smooth muscle deep to that is called the dartos layer. And that's going to work with a layer of skeletal muscle that is surrounding the testes called the cremaster. And both of these are going to work to monitor the distance that the testes are from the rest of the body. So when it's cold, these muscles contract and it pulls the testes closer to the body so they can benefit from the higher body temperature. And then we have a layer of fascia between the dartos and the cremaster, which is the superficial scrotofascia. So what we're looking at in this picture is a transverse section of the testes. So we're looking like down after the testes have been cut in half. And there are tons of tubules. And so you'll see that each testis is divided into what's called lobules by septa. And the septa contain these tubules that are here called the seminiferous tubules. This is where the sperm are produced. And then once the sperm are produced, they're going to be pushed along this tube system. So from the seminiferous tubules, they enter into this straightaway called the straight tubules. That goes towards a common area, this little maze of tubes called the reedy testes, and then the reedy testes converge to form the efferent tubules, which then form the epididymis. So the sperm, as I said, are produced by the seminiferous tubules, and the cells that line the outside of the tubules, so like these blue cells here, these are the cells that are going to become sperm. These purple cells are called nurse cells, and then here we have interstitial cells that are going to produce hormones. That's why they're called interstitial endocrine cells, namely testosterone, which is required for sperm production. All right, let's take a closer look at the male reproductive duct system. So as I said, inside the seminiferous tubules is where the sperm are going to start to grow, but they're moving from the outside of the tube, like where the wall of the tube is, towards the lumen, towards the space that's on the inside. So this is just a pie slice of that seminiferous tubule. And these blue cells are showing cells that are going to develop into sperm in various stages. The closer they are to the lumen, the closer they are to looking more like a mature sperm. But at this stage, like where the head is still buried into the seminiferous tubule, and even once the sperm are freed from the seminiferous tubule, these sperm are still immature. They are not able to swim yet, so they're immobile, and therefore they're not able to fertilize an ovum yet. So they have to get pushed through all of these tubes to get to the bottom of the epididymis and the beginning portion of the vas deferens in order to mature more before they can be ejaculated and move on to the female reproductive system to perform fertilization. Again, the seminiferous tubules are going to be the start of the male reproductive tract, and as I said, they're connected to this large coiled tube outside of the testes called the epididymis. There's 3 parts which are highlighted in this box. The functions of this tube system, or of the epididymis, is to monitor fluid from the seminiferous tubules. The epididymis also has stereocilia, which are going to brush those sperm along the length of these tubes. It's also going to recycle old and damaged sperm so that the ones that are ejaculated are complete, are functional, and their genetic material is intact. So this is going to be the storage place for sperm, and they're also going to be protected by living at the right temperature, by ensuring that they are not damaged by infection, for instance. All right, so the vas deferens, also called the ductus deferens, is going to start at the tail of the epididymis, right down here at the bottom. This is where you're going to have some sperm storage, and it is the vas deferens that is part of the spermatic cord. It's going to enter the body via the inguinal canal. And so here's another picture of the ductus deferens / vas deferens. So right up here, you can see that it's entering into the body. And then this red organ that we have here is the urinary bladder. And this tube is the ureter. So this is how the kidneys are going to connect to the urinary bladder itself. But you can see that the vas deferens kind of swings around the top portion of the urinary bladder and behind the ureter, and then it comes back around the posterior aspect of the urinary bladder, and there's this swollen portion here that's called the ampulla. The ampulla can store sperm as well, so that they don't have as far to travel during ejaculation. And then the ampulla is going to merge with a duct from another gland, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And then that's going to merge together with the urethra. There are three different portions of the urethra that you need to know. It's going to perform a different function from that in the female, because the male urethra is not only a passageway to excrete urine, but it's also the way that the sperm travel to exit the body during ejaculation. So we've got three regions of the urethra. The prostatic urethra, highlighted in green here, is the portion that is directly connected to the urinary bladder, and it travels through the prostate gland. The membranous urethra, which is highlighted in blue, is the portion that sits between the prostate and the base of the penis. And then the spongy urethra, highlighted in pink, is the portion that runs through the penis and then forms that opening at the tip. So this is something that you guys need to know for that reading quiz. Wink, wink. So make sure that you're able to trace the path of sperm through the duct system. And if you need to know what the answers are, voila, there they are. Okay, so I'm going to breeze through these questions. You've got these questions on a separate document in Canvas. They are totally optional, but if you want to make sure that you're getting the most important details, then you should definitely take a look at it, look through these slides, which I've also posted to Canvas, and that you can answer the questions that way as well. Well, I'm going to stop this video here, and then I'll create a new one, picking up right here where we left off. Thanks for watching.